People pay good money to see this movie. When they go out to a theater, they want cold sodas, hot popcorn, and no monsters in the projection booth.
Everyone pretend podcasting isn't boring.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
School in the morning! Yeah!
In 2008, North Meadows High School had their school year cut short due to a tornado. 18 years later, that class will return home and finish high school.
Yikes.
Can you please just act normal for 2 weeks? Then we're done. You graduate, and we all go back to our normal lives. No drama.
Cannot do this play.
You have to! It's the rules!
No drinking in class! Okay, let me get one of you at the beans.
Everything has to be exactly the way it was in 2008.
How cool is this?
Same classes, same sports. We can give this graduating class the fresh start it deserves.
Baby, why would I do killing at a Cracker Barrel? I love that place.
Hooray!
You're one of the dumbest people I've ever met.
I've changed. People never change.
If you don't ace these final exams, you're gonna have to do the semester all over again.
Oh, come on!
What about my life?
Party at my house tonight. My parents just died. Everyone's gonna be there.
Oh my God, dude.
The house is totally to ourselves, and we're gonna rage. Classic.
In high school, I was sort of like a son of a bitch. I was rude and selfish, and I can remember at least 2 specific times that I called somebody fat ass.
Hey folks, welcome to a special episode of The Projection Booth. I'm your host, Mike White. On this episode, I'm talking with editor Whit Conway all about the new film, Never Change. I believe it just dropped on Hulu like the day before I'm recording this. So had a great time talking with Mr. Conway. Hope you have a great time watching Never Change and have a great time listening to this interview. Thanks so much. Before we even start to talk about this latest project, I would love to know a little bit more about you. You've done a little bit of a lot of stuff, and I'm so curious. Can you tell me how you even got your start in show business?
Yes, I grew up in Chicago, and after college, I landed back. I got a degree in film and television production from Indiana University, but after college, I was back in Chicago doing production stuff, post-work, mostly advertising, which is in Chicago. And I fell into Second City and IO, comedy schools over there. So doing performing and writing and stuff. And then at night and on the weekends, I was asking all my comedy friends to say like, hey, I've got equipment and I know production skills. And I was like dipping the toe into trying to learn about filmmaking through filmmaking and through making stuff with friends. And this is in like, I graduated college in 2006. So, you know, in the advent of sort of a camera that's now affordable, that looks good, and Premiere Pro being suddenly, you know, workable on a laptop. You know, I was spending my days at these post-production facilities and where avids were, you know, 30 grand to be able to edit something. And then suddenly you're able to do it at home. Obviously, Final Cut was there, but I don't know why in college I sort of never got into it. And then I spent about 10 years doing that, working in advertising and production. And in Chicago, I was working at these places where like you just did everything. It was that time of like, hey, we've got a client, someone's got to go out, they've got to talk to the client, they've got to book the locations, they've got to hire the crew, they've got to go shoot, you know, with camera. It's only going to be 6 to 8 people maybe on set. So you're sort of doing everything, and then we would bring that footage back and then edit it, color correct it, do the motion graphics. So I sort of got this very well-rounded start of being introduced to everything. And when I got out of school, I had seen a couple people, and you know, obviously, like feature films were my dream North Star, but I knew that I was not ready to like jump in, and I saw 3 or 4 friends make feature films, and it literally killed them to the point where they stopped doing it. And I was like, well, I'm not doing that, but I can work with my friends and make short films and try things out and go, hey, I've never shot anything handheld. Okay, what's that look like? Now I'm going to do this whole short just working on a tripod, and I'm not ever going to put my hands on the camera. And then, just sort of like trying things out over very, very short, small projects over many years. I moved to New York in 2015 and learned that like most people don't do that. Most people don't try and take more sort of responsibilities on. There's much more specialization. And so when I got to New York, I was just available for a lot of jobs and a lot of things. And for some people, I became, when I started working, for some people, I was a jack of all trades guy and I could do the whole pipeline. For some people, I was just an editor or just a DP or just a director. And that led to just getting into, I also, used my connections in Chicago comedy to come to the New York comedy scene. And everybody that I was working with in Chicago sort of said, hey, Whit's here. He's come to New York if you need anybody. And I got in with a bunch of people basically that are in this movie. And the director, Marty Schousboe, and I met through those connections. And then we started working with each other and we cut 3 seasons of TV together for Joe Pera Talks With You. So I was editing there. The first season of that led to me meeting someone and getting an opportunity to go to SNL and edit at SNL. And simultaneously, I was DP'ing stuff, and I met a producer at The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and he hired me to start DP'ing stuff at Colbert. So it's like spending my weekdays over at Colbert, doing field shoots with Jake Plunkett, and then going to SNL on Friday and spending the weekend at SNL, Friday and Saturday. And then I was also directing stuff, and I got an opportunity to direct. Jimmy Kimmel saw a short that I made through a friend of ours, and he invited me out to direct at his show. And that was sort of the entree into directing. But, to your point about doing everything, that was sort of my goal right from the get-go is if I learn everything, all of these skills, then at least if I don't have someone to do this aspect, I could probably do it. I could probably stumble my way through it. And especially with YouTube now that everything is available education-wise. But it really did help me work. It helped me keep working and helped me allow myself to say yes to as many people and work with as many people as possible, which, the more relationships you have, the more people you can connect with. And the other side of that being like, I try to be as warm and jovial and hardworking as I possibly can so that I can get hired again. Because I do think I worked with a great director when I was producer director at Last Week Tonight. He directed the shows over there, directs the shows over there. His name's Paul Penolino. He says, it's all about the good hang. If you're not a good hang, you're not going to be around. It was this well-rounded education that I feel like now I do feel strong in all those, and I can talk about all of the different disciplines with any department head that I get to hire. Production design and like sort of art is the one thing that I feel like I never had enough resources to really put towards that. And that's when I'm so excited to build a set or do anything with any large practical fabricated stuff. Those are always the really fun things because that's the stuff that I feel like I never got to experience as sort of jack of all trades guy.
So help me correct an image I have in my head, which is editing at Saturday Night Live, because I picture more like broadcast news where you're in the control booth and you've got the switches, camera 1, camera 3. What is actual editing on Saturday Night Live like?
So I was a part of the film pre-tape department. So all the sketches that get shot, which is, it's a really extremely educational, intense, fun job to get. There is a sort of a cadre of editors that they keep at 30 Rock. As they start shooting stuff, they roll the footage right over to 30 Rock and the editors start working on it. So when they're doing their pre-tapes, the editors are sort of working as stuff comes out of the camera. It goes from wherever set they are in New York City over to 30 Rock. And then the editors are, the assistant editors and the editors are organizing all that footage, managing that footage, handing stuff off to an editor. There's usually 3 editors to a piece with 1 point editor and then 2 sort of assistant editors. And you start on Friday. All the pre-tapes are shot on Friday, the day before SNL. And that's for a couple of reasons. So one, the scripts aren't chosen till Wednesday night. Then they need 1 full day, really sort of 36 hours, to do all the pre-tape prep work, which all the pre-producing and what new locations, wardrobe, costume, animals, whatever they need to source within 24 hours. And SNL has an incredible Rolodex of people, and also people that they already have these crews on hold. And then, so they do all that pre-production on Thursday. And then on Friday, everything starts shooting. And on Friday, the editors also start. So they start organizing stuff as it comes out of the camera. And then you work overnight until about 4 or 5 in the morning, usually. Then they get you a hotel across the street. You go sleep for a couple hours, and then you come back and you work with so that's all without the director. The director's still on set, essentially. So you're sort of managing the footage and then doing the assembly. And then at about 9, 10 in the morning, you go back in. The director comes in, and you work with the director at about 10 to 1-ish, 12 to 1, depending on, I haven't been there in a bunch of years, but this is what it was when I was there. Then at 1, the writers come in and the producers start coming in. And then that's the main thrush of the edit is during that day. As an assistant editor, you're sort of sitting in the room, watching and listening, building sound effects and doing the whole sound design pass, because there's really no time for the sound mix to happen. The sound mix has to happen when it's locked, and it doesn't, it gets locked and then unlocked because it goes to dress rehearsal and then comes back and has changes after dress rehearsal. So you make edits after 9:30 p.m. on Saturday night. And that means you have to make edits, and you have to make visual effects changes. You have to make color changes. And so it becomes this very, very shrinking window. And then you back time to what time your sketch is airing. So it's not 11:35, it's done. It's okay, now we're going till 12:07, because that's when it has to go on TV. And so that's the main thrush of it. And you work really, really furiously and hard. And there are really intense points. Then there are sort of lulls in the day, like getting it off to go to dress. Everything sort of calms down, and you can go have dinner and stuff. And then it airs on TV that night, and you watch it go out and play. And however it airs, it is thrilling to see that sort of 36 hours of work on TV right there. So it's really, really exciting work. And it's also the best film school that I've ever experienced. It's the best people in New York working in that department and for those crews. And I learned the most there. I learned the most because I was truly the best editors that I've ever been around are in that department. And they work so fast, and I learned everything about sound design from them, because I came in knowing like I should be sound designing, not nearly to the level that they do, because they have to make it like a final pass on their first pass. If you can't handle the stress, and if you can't handle the pace, then you don't last very long. And that's probably better. It's not for everybody. That's for sure. It's not a place where you can just sit back. There is a speed and an urgency at which you have to operate. Yeah, you won't be back the next week.
Definitely sounds like you've been in the comedy world for a long damn time. And I'm curious, have you edited any other type of things or worked on other type of things? Because I imagine there's got to be a different style when you edit comedy versus a narrative, I would say.
Yeah, of course. I think in terms of like different than comedy, I would almost just say like, what is the goal of the piece? I've done plenty of like corporate doc work. I used to do pharmaceutical interviews in Chicago, working and making trade show sizzle reels and stuff like that. So I've done all of that work. And I think for me as an editor, especially, it's what's the goal of the piece, and then how are we communicating that? In terms of like comedy or drama, I really think, and I believe, like comedy taken seriously is when it's the most funny. I laugh the hardest at the characters who are not being funny. They are the way they are. To me, it's like taking the world seriously. I wouldn't say it's narratively different. I've cut some more dramatic short films that maybe I've been asked to help out with, or, but they've not really taken off the way I feel like some of my comedic stuff has, more of just because a dramatic short is really hard to stand out unless it's got two people talking, an emotional arc is really nice and sweet. But for short content and short narrative, you would definitely want to make something happen. I think comedies generally, even if they're sort of slapstick and silly, they sort of have more of that. So I think also just being a part of the world of what you put out, as I think people ask you for what you've already done. Hey, you did that thing. Can you do that again for me? So I think that more than anything, which is honestly the biggest lesson to learn. If you start putting stuff out, people are going to see that and go, when they react and respond, they're going to say, great, I want more of that. They are not necessarily going to say, what else can you do? Or what else would you like to be doing? So, something to keep in mind, I think, like I've seen and talked to a bunch of people throughout my career. They're like, I'm stuck in this corner. When I was young, that was reality. It was don't go into reality. If you go in, you'll never get out. And I had a couple friends that like they fell in because they needed a job or whatever reason, and then they spent like 5 or 6 years and were like, I gotta get out of here. It's toxic. So yeah, I don't think I'll take Never Change as a good example. Like we treat the characters in the world and the silliness of the world, though it's as if it's serious. We really don't try and parse out when it's being irreverent and silly and when it's being serious, because I don't think we want to indicate that. We want to make people believe that the world is existing in front of them, sort of take everything seriously.
So obviously you probably had more than 36 hours to work on Never Change, but when were you brought into the project? Was still in the writing phase? Yeah, was it already shooting? Where were you at?
So Marty Schousboe, the director, and John Reynolds, the writer and star, and Marty was the story writer as well on it. So they'd been working on the project for about 5 years. And Marty and I are very good friends. Like I said earlier, we cut 3 seasons of Joe Pera Talks With You, an Adult Swim show together. And so, we've spent years and years in the editing room already. And he is the director and editor of all of that whole series, and then also of Never Change. So we just have a really good rapport and way of working. He really trusts me, obviously. And so I'd been talking to him about this project for a bunch of years because I was his friend and I was watching him go through the pitching process, and they pitched it as a TV show. It didn't go. That was right before the strike. So it was sort of like nothing was happening. And then after the strike, they took it back out as a movie, and Hulu greenlit it. And then it took, I think even then it took almost a year and a half to like make all the deals and have everything happen, and then get in the production slot at American High, which was where it was shot up in Syracuse. There's a production company that has a high school that they use for filming movies, and they have a deal with Hulu to do that. So it was sort of a lot of things that had to happen to like get it on the schedule. And I was talking to Marty through the whole thing, just because we're good buddies, and we're also sort of like, okay, if this doesn't happen, what else are we working on and what are you working on? And we keep each other a little bit accountable in that way, which is nice to have a buddy to do that with. And then when the movie actually started to happen and he's like prepping for going to do prep and be in Syracuse to shoot, I'm tasked with figuring out how the post is going to work and sort of giving him my best. He trusts me a lot. In season 3, Joe Pera, we didn't want to go to a post house. We just found an apartment, and I built us a server, and we built out an apartment as if it was our space, because we knew we were going to be there for almost a year. We wanted a really comfortable place. And so in the same vein, it's figuring out all of the who are the vendors and the places that we're keeping our footage at, and who are our post vendors going to be in terms of mix and color and VFX, and all that is done through our post supervising team and the producers. And then as soon as they started shooting, I started cutting. Is on for a couple weeks before the production, and then production, this union rules that, you start the day that like you can't start for some reason before that. So I started the day of production, and then I went throughout the whole production working. And Marty and I had talked, like our timeline was very short. You said more than 36 hours. We did have more than 36 hours, but it wasn't much more. This was shot September to end of October last year. So the last day of production was like right around Halloween. And then it's on TV next week, which is a very, very, very fast turn for a full feature film. So we knew we had to go very fast, and going very fast meant I had to work really fast in the prep to, while I was alone, to just put everything up on its feet. And so a week after production wrapped, I had a full cut of the movie that was 2 hours and 45 minutes. And it was sort of everything every scene and every even bit in every scene, like an attempt. Okay, you guys improvised this on the day. I thought this was funny. I'm going to include this in the scene just to see, okay, we're going to chop half of this out. We all sort of know that, but what is going to tickle Marty and John as they watch it for the first time, even though those first watches for directors and writers are awful, of getting over all of the production problems and that they see in every single frame, that all the compromises that you have to make. And then, so then Marty and I worked through November and December, and the director's cut was like the end, just at Christmas time. So really, really short time. I think it was about 6 or 7 weeks for that. And then we worked until the end of February to lock, and then did score, VFX, sound design, and color between March, April, May, and here we are.
How is it working with a director who's also an editor?
Oh, it's awesome. That's the other thing. I think, like, I'm also a director. We can think about things, and there's plenty of disagreements. And then John was also in the room with us, writer and star. So we all are sitting in a room. At first, we started remote. It took, Marty was remote. Just to go through all that footage takes about a month to go through everything and sort of choose his versions of things, because while he is the director, he like you said, he's also the editor. So he also wants cracks at things that I might have not done in the way that he was dreaming it, or the way that they had planned it, just because, and you have grand ambitions to sort of talk regularly, and then production happens and things run behind, and you start to like lose that time between post and production, I think, at least on something that's this ambitious and this short sort of turnaround. And then working with him as an editor we're very, very versed to it, because we did, like I said, those 3 seasons of TV together. And that was a lot of time. So I think that was, 11 episodes in the first season and 14 episodes in the second, and then another 10 in the third, that we really 3.5, 4 years of working together. We generally just like make what are we doing today? Who's doing what? Who's going to work? Are we going to work separately, or are we going to work together? Are there things that I need to get ahead on, because we're sort of looking down at before next Friday, we've got to tackle this whole section. So maybe Whit, you jump ahead and do that. And then I'm going to work with John, because writer, director, and other editor, they can make decisions that are like, okay, what do we think is the funniest take here? And then I'm sort of advancing stuff. So it's a big sort of just a circular look at what you need to do and how much time you need to do it.
How are you able to stay organized with all these moving pieces?
We stay organized with our assistant editor, Christy Fariso, who is also an SNL editor. She's still at SNL. I left, in 2020, but she's been there since then. We met there. And then she and I stole that organization, and I use that. We cut on Premiere. So I organize through Premiere. We sort of, Christy and I discuss how we want to organize the project at the very beginning. And then she is actually in charge of that. So she takes all the dailies and then cuts everything and organizes it. And then when I get it, it's really just the scene material, and that's organized by scene. We do these things called line by lines, which is basically we take every scene and we cut every performance of a single line, and we sort of combine them all so that we can use our time later. Instead of, hey, we need all the whats from this response. I just want to see all the whats, like all 15 of these. Instead of going, okay, great, I need to go cut all those together. We do that on the front end, and it takes Christy a really long time. I think it took her 3 full months to do the whole movie, but it saves so much time on the back end that we've really learned that like it's an essential part of how we like to work, because you're then, you're up against a lock later in February, and you're scrambling to go, oh, we've got to swap this and we want to swap this, or you're just watching something and it just feels wrong suddenly. I've watched this 100 times and it's not making me laugh anymore, which is a nervous and dangerous impulse to indulge. But those line by lines really help us. And so she is really the first line of defense in terms of organization there. And then for me, as I added, it's daily revisions of the sequence and duplication in that way and naming like that, because we are going, shit, no, we got that cut. We did that thing and it was in this cut and that was 2 weeks ago. And now we have to refer back to something. So that does happen a lot, where you're sort of calling back to want to find something that you made before. And then like sound design, sound effects, all that stuff. I work in Adobe After Effects to like make previs visual effects for our visual effects artists. And I love doing that. We time everything out in our edit and together. So sort of not spending the dollars that we would with like maybe a previs artist. We do that together, Marty and I, and then we finalize the timing and the blocking of how we want things to look. And then we ship that off to our visual effects artist, Dylan. And so all that is just, it's honestly just, it's like mostly diligence. It's mostly saying, if I don't stay organized, I will be so mad at myself, because you're up against being like, how do I need to find this thing and I can't find it. And that's unacceptable late in the game. As soon as you do that and it burns you, you remember to stay organized, I think.
With a picture that is this tight, are you able to do any sort of previews or get any sort of feedback from audiences just to make those final adjustments?
Yeah, it was so fast, this timeline, that we didn't really have time for a public preview. I think we would have all really welcomed it. There was a couple moments that I think we wish we had 2 or 3 more weeks. We would have really loved to iron out. And I love the movie and I love to where it got, but ultimately there are moments that just got cut out. Maybe for the duration, that helps the duration. It's not a long movie, but like people always say faster, funnier and stuff. We did have one screening that we got to show sort of friends and family, and that happened, and we still had about a month of work left. I was just talking to one of the actors actually a couple minutes ago, and we were both at the premiere and he was at the friends and family screening, and he was saying, oh my God, since that screening, everything looks and sounds so great. And sure, it's the hard part of that, because if you're still in the rough cut, there are just these pieces of the movie that don't feel right. And they're going to feel right. But there's an incredible graphic intro section that our guy Dylan did. I did the temp version of that, and it's solid, but it's not me spending 2 or 3 full weeks on just that sequence. And so it's a little bit rough around the edges. And so things feel just a little maybe less exciting. And the music all changed after we locked. So it's asking people to suspend that disbelief. And then, while it was an informative screening, I think ultimately it did help solidify for us, okay, in the room, we just need to go with what we think is the funniest and try and make sure that we feel like we're servicing every storyline appropriately.
Were there any moments where you were at that premiere where you're just like, should have changed that?
No, actually, I was really surprised and like pleasantly surprised. There's one moment that I don't like that I don't know if you remember, but my voice is in it. My name is in it. So I say, hi, I'm Whit Conway in the movie. And we were in the mix a couple weeks ago. And I was like, guys, like, if we could change this, like, I would be okay with that. And so it's more of like a cringe of like, the audience isn't going to know who I am. But John was really laughing at that. Like, no, people are going to look your name up and then they're going to laugh because they're going to like, he edited the movie, like sort of a confusing joke. So that was really the only one I was like, yeah, I was anticipating with a little bit of anxiety going like, I don't know if this is going to play, but that moment plays really well. And so my name is sort of a footnote in terms of where that moment comes up. And I saw that, I was reading a review yesterday and saw that was called out specifically of like, this is how schools are now. That was really the only one. Yeah. It was so fun after so many months of seeing it with 3 people or 4 people in a room, to see it with 450 people laughing was so satisfying.
Do you already have your next gig lined up?
I've been writing some stuff, and I'm trying to take something out to pitch to write, and I've got a movie that I am trying to pitch, a movie that I wrote, and then a pilot that I wrote. So I am trying to do that thing of even at the premiere party, I was talking to one of the producers. He goes, "What do you have next?" I said, I'm trying to do the thing of keeping people guessing and show people a script I wrote. And that's something that, I've written for years and years and years, and I have put my own writing aside to work with other people that I admire for a really long time. So it's time now for me to trust myself and trust that I've got something to say and a way to say it. And so I'm excited about that aspect. So try and go take something out and then find some money, find someone who believes in it, and direct something.
Is there a good place for people to keep up with you online?
My Instagram handle is Whitney Christopher, which is mostly a social justice account and then partially a never change account. And I do post what I'm working on there, but mostly it's me angry about what is happening in the world right now. And then my website is whitconway.com if people can see what I've worked on there. And hopefully I'll have something to talk about here in the next couple months.
Yeah. What's the line? If you're not angry, you're not paying attention. Yeah.
That's exactly Mike.
Mr. Conway, thank you so much for your time. This was so great talking with you.
Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate it. And I hope everybody enjoys the movie, Never Change. It'll be on Hulu on June 17th.
And so it goes. We mouth your your words when your tongues are too paralyzed. We finished up the peanut butter and jelly that you get in your rider but never eat. We still pee in bottles. We played your graduation parties. We had fallen comrades. We just rebuilt the team. Our friends are rich and we love it, because it makes us look wealthy too. Shit, I still got a sidekick one with a crack in the fucking screen, man. We were your favorite quote. I'm the first person to know about these guys' end quote bands. We danced to Use Me by Bill Withers in a drunken stupor until Mom Gary tells us to go the fuck home and kick us out. We make mistakes. We love, we hate. We're not angry anymore though. Still miss you. Still love you. Like a slug hates salt. And we're still your heroes.